And as we're watching the primaries here in Washington state, we're also watching some of the biggest races around the country. 4 other states had primaries yesterday. We'll focus on 2, 1 Arizona and 2 Kansas. So let's start in the Grand Canyon state, where you had a high profile race for the Republican ticket for governor. Now keep in mind, unlike Washington, where it's just the best 2 candidates, could be 2 Democrats, could be 2 Republicans. In Arizona, it's just going to be 1 Republican advancing to November and 1 Democrat. And the focus was on the Republican ticket because the 2 leading candidates were endorsed, one by Mike Pence, one by Donald Trump. And within the last hour, Carrie Lake on the right there, the former TV news anchor who was endorsed by Donald Trump, she has overtaken Karen Taylor Robson, who is endorsed by Mike Pence, and now leads 46 to 44% with 80% of the vote in. And it means that as of right now, the leading Republican candidates for governor, U.S. Senate, Secretary of State, and Attorney General are all 4 those who have been endorsed by Trump, and all 4 deny that the election of Joe Biden was legit in 2020. So that is a big turnaround this morning in Arizona. And then in Kansas, this one, 99% of the vote is in. It's a done deal. Voters there upholding the right to abortion. This was the first state to hold basically a Roe v. Wade vote since that was overturned by the Supreme Court 2 months ago, 2 months ago. And they had a huge turnout, 50%, which is gigantic for a primary, especially in Kansas, and it was 59 to 41. So an 18-point win, quote unquote, for abortion rights, them voting that their state constitution does protect the right to an abortion. And worth noting for the record that this is a state that Donald Trump won by double digits, both in 2016 against Hillary Clinton and 2020 against Joe Biden. Jews all over the world are celebrating a big holiday this week, but not many people outside the religion know about it. It's called Purim, and here's everything you need to know about it in about 60 seconds. We'll call it Purim 101. Now, it's always in the spring. This year, it begins Wednesday night and ends Thursday night. It tells the story of about 300 BC when the Jews escaped exile from Persia. Now, Purim, the word in Hebrew, in English means lots, as in casting lots, like flipping a coin today, a way to finish a debate. So according to Jewish tradition, an evil leader named Haman was trying to exterminate the Jews and was going to cast lots to pick a date. But his plot was foiled by a queen named Esther, and that makes her the primary hero of the holiday, which kind of makes it a very hashtag girl power vibe throughout the day. So it's a very joyous celebration. A lot of Jewish people will wear costumes to synagogue, whether it's the Incredibles or you name it. You're going to see it in a synagogue, that's for sure. You also have a lot of happy songs people are singing. People try to keep perspective on the freedom by donating to charity. Jewish people will eat lots and lots of sweets. And anytime Haman, that bad guy, his name is called out, everybody will boo or twist a loud toy called a grogger. It looks sort of like this, makes a crackling sound to drown out his name because he's such an evil guy, according to the tradition. Now, as for those sweets, the most traditional food is a triangular-shaped pastry called Hamantaschen. Haman, again, the name of the bad guy, where it comes from. You got chocolate, you got fruits in the middle. So it's great for the taste buds. Not a great holiday for your waistline, to be honest. But if you want to know a little more about the holiday, you can text that word holiday to us at 206-448-4545. We'll let you know everything else you'd like to know. But that's it. You've passed Purim 101. What a powerful day it was yesterday. We were all watching Washington, D.C. once again on January 6th, a year after the attack by Trump supporters on the U.S. Capitol. Chuck Todd, the host of NBC's Meet the Press, joining us now live. So, Chuck, 1 year later, what impact would you say that day has had on our political landscape?
Well, look, I think it's more disjointed today than it was a year ago. And I tell you, I feel like I'm as cynical and as unnaive as anybody is these days. I guess I was naive a year ago. I whiffed on that one. Yeah, a lot of us were. You know, today we have major flooding here in our state. We've had just crazy weather between Christmas and New Year's, and you guys got pummeled in D.C. We also I-95 backed up for 50 miles. I don't know if you personally got caught in that, but thinking about climate change here as we turn from December to January in a new year, do any of these things, do you think, move the needle at all politically? I don't know if it moves the needle at all politically, but here's where it will move the needle. That's the one way it can move the needle. It isn't going to come from the top down. It's going to come from sort of the pragmatic bottom. I know you got to go, but I want to ask you quickly about Sidney Poitier, an iconic actor, humanitarian. For me, In the Heat of the Night is the defining role of his career. What's your favorite performance from Sidney Poitier? Well, guess who's coming to dinner in the heat of the night? I mean, I remember I'm going to show my age a little bit, but I was 12 when we first got a VCR. and status in Hollywood.
Yeah, by watching as many of his movies as we can this weekend. Chuck, as always, great stuff. We'll watch you on Sunday morning here on King 5, 6 o'clock, right
Steve.
before King 5 weekend morning news. Love taking you above the fold every day here on King 5 News at noon, sharing newspaper stories from around Western Washington, telling your stories like the Kitsap Sun, once a submariner, always a submariner. This is about a new exhibit at the Naval Museum in Keyport, and it documents life in a submarine where you spend months underwater, you miss so many family milestones, get back on shore, you can't talk about what you did, but they've also got some lighthearted things like, is it submariner or submariner? The Navy prefers the latter. In the Squim Gazette, really neat feature about Tim's Place, and this supports people with dementia. And so on the front page, Elaine Bradford and Cecilia Schutten playing balloon volleyball, where you keep 3 balloons in the air by tapping them with these pool noodles. And in World War II, by the way, Cecilia was recruited to join the Women's Baseball League, made famous in a league of their own. Great little tidbit from the story. And finally, in the Lewis Chronicle, flying saucer party. Yes, sign me up. About 900 people turned out for this festival in Chehalis on the 75th anniversary of the local pilot's famous UFO sighting that birthed the name Flying Saucer. It was 1947. That's where that term came from, right here in the state of Washington. You can read about it in the Chronicle. Steve Bunin with you on King 5 News at noon. A ferry crashes into the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal. We're live on the scene in 30 seconds. Right now, 36 families are without a home in Federal Way. Their apartment burned down. Some of them had to be rescued, and it was caught on camera. U.S. economy shrinking again. What that means for a potential recession.
And we're heading into another hot afternoon. Already seeing a lot of spots in the 80s around Puget Sound. Back in the 90s this afternoon. We'll let you know how long they stick around coming up.
And day 2 of Seahawks training camp, why DK isn't playing, and what KJ is saying at his retirement conference, news conference that's happening right now. And let's begin with a live look at the Fauntleroy Ferry Dock in Seattle. It was 8:30 this morning. The ferry slammed right into it, and you can see some of it's bent down there at the top. And we have new video from the ferry taken by a passenger who was on it and sent it to us. And you can see they're pointing out the damage that right from here, it takes you just inside that spot. Major damage on the port side there of the vessel. Our Sebastian Robertson has been on the scene all morning. Sebastian, what can you tell us right now?
Hi, Steve. The good news here is that nobody was injured, but so quickly and creates such an accident. Steve?
Yeah, well, the next question is the ferry system. We know the state is already on kind of a reduced schedule because of staffing issues. What kind of a mess is this going to leave for people trying to get to Vashon and Kitsap County? That's 300,000 people.
Yes, and the ripple effect will be felt not just for today. Expect delays for quite some time. Steve?
Sebastian Robertson reporting live, our biggest story of the day. And then we're also following the heat wave, and it is continuing longer than we initially thought. Temperatures again expected to reach the 90s in parts of western Washington, whether you live in Bellingham, Everett, Seattle, or Tacoma. Let's get a quick shot of the 7-day forecast, and you can see 90s, not just for today and tomorrow, but through Saturday now as well, before the drop off slowly begins and then quickly gets down to the 70s. So a little longer than originally planned, because Mother Nature sometimes does what she does. Adam Claiborne, the meteorologist here, you've all been following this in the Weather Center. What kind of changed and what are you seeing today?
Yeah, so we do have another update to the excessive heat warning. Thankfully, it's on the eastern side of the state, or unless you are heading to that side of the state, where eventually expected to cool down coming up.
Thank you very much, Adam. And we know now the heat wave in the Pacific Northwest has turned deadly. 2 people in Oregon have died from what's believed to be heat-related illnesses. That city, the Rose City, been experiencing triple-digit temperatures since Monday, with a high of just 98 today, but it'll be back up to 100 tomorrow and Saturday. Within the last 2 hours, we have learned that someone under 18 was treated for a heat-related illness at UW Medicine. They've been discharged. Right now, we're getting a closer look at the damage from a fire that left at least 36 families without a home in Federal Way. Take a look at that. The fire broke out yesterday afternoon near 21st Avenue Southwest, and so devastating for so many families who now have nowhere to go. Our Kayla Lafferty was at the scene.
Well, the damage from this fire, KING5 News.
Thank you, Kayla. Within the last 90 minutes, we've learned the name of the man shot and killed in Renton. The King County medical examiner says Losefo Samaga was killed last night. He was 26. The shooting happened near Jean Coulon Park. Witnesses told police they heard gunshots and saw a group of people and then spotted Samaga laying on the ground. And right now, police still looking for a suspect. A woman in Seattle wants to know who killed her husband while he was riding his bicycle near the Spokane Street Bridge. Police do too. They're still searching for the hit and run driver. Our Callie Greenberg spoke with Claudia Mason, who lost her husband and now wants someone held responsible.
Just before the Spokane Street Bridge.
KING5 News.
12:10 right now. The U.S. economy is shrinking. The latest GDP report, the gross domestic product, came out this morning. It's how much we produce as a country, and it's down 0.9% this quarter. And that makes 2 quarters in a row that's sort of going in the wrong direction. We'll compare that to 2021 when you're above the zero line coming out of the pandemic lockdowns. Things going pretty well in 2021. But the first 2 financial quarters of 2022, both below where analysts would like to see it. Now, the longtime definition of a recession is that 2 consecutive quarters, so 6 months of the year, going down. But the Biden administration and the Federal Reserve Chairman say not in this case, because the labor market is so strong and unemployment is so low, they don't qualify it as a recession. Our Jake Wittenberg spoke with CNBC's Dominic Chu about the difference between what Wall Street is seeing and what we see on Main Street.
And you have a lot of Americans, but it factors into the discussion.
Now, when you look at stocks right now, Wall Street, they're up today. We'll dive into the biggest movers up and down a little later in the show. But just yesterday, the Federal Reserve raised the interest rate another 3/4 point. That's historic. We'll talk about that coming up at 12:30 as well. Next on King 5, a deal to get Brittany Griner home. What exactly would it take? College athletes are finally cashing in, getting paid for their name, image, and likeness, why some coaches don't like it at all. And day 2 of Hawks camp about to begin on the field, why DK isn't playing, and what KJ Wright just said at his retirement news conference.